Good evening, and welcome back to the Fireside. Snuggle in close and drift with me to the quiet hills of Prospect, Connecticut in the summer of 1977. To a house burning to the ground, while the family of 9 inside, a mother and 8 children, bound at wrist and ankle, and by the sins of one, took their place in the record as the worst mass murder in the state's history at the time. A single night, a vanished dawn, and a name that would stain the ash forever. Lorne J. Acquin. Daylight had worn thin. The heat of July softened into evening. On a small street in Prospect, ordinary joy was doing what it does best, blessing a weekday with laughter. 8 children, some brownie small, some on the edge of long-legged summers, splashed in the neighbor's pool. Their mother, 29-year-old Cheryl B., watched from the edge, the way mothers do. One eye on the water, one on the house, both on tomorrow. Their father, Patrick, was working third shift at Pratt & Whitney. The assembly line would not notice him going through the motions, would not know that the clock on that wall was counting down the last hours of the only life he understood. And then, a familiar figure arrived. Slim, long black hair, a mustache that shadowed words he did not yet speak. The children brightened, rushed thudding toward him with the unguarded love that lives in kitchens and backseats and copybook margins. He was family of a kind, a foster brother to their father, a man who had once lived beneath their roof, in the basement where tools and secrets are stored. Neighbors would say later, when he came, the family went home. The veil dropped. The town exhaled. Screen doors took their last breath of the day and latched. Between midnight and dawn, the dark belongs to memory and to men who cannot sleep. In a little house with too many shoes by the door, a mother set out tomorrow's things. Somewhere in that space just before dreams, a cellar door sighed. A light clicked on in the kitchen. Footsteps. A voice. I need some tools. Maybe a beer. A woman turned to oblige family at an ungodly hour, because kindness is a reflex that never expects a blow. The first strike was an eclipse. Metal met bone. The world narrowed to breath and blood and the terrible mathematics of courage. She did not scream. Perhaps she would not call the children to the slaughter. Perhaps she believed the storm would spend itself on her and pass by those rooms where sleep was still holy. But houses are too small to hold that kind of silence. A doorway filled with a child's outline. Then another, a wrench, a tire iron, a mind unmoored from mercy. Some tragedies announce themselves in sirens. Others begin far quieter before they scream. At 4:15 a.m., neighbors woke to smoke. First the ordinary kind that says someone is burning leaves out back, and then the kind that makes your heart run faster than your feet. Screams. A picture window blew out, breathing fire into the night. A neighbor ran, shouldered the back door, and was hurled backward by heat that spoke in a language older than prayer. Prospect called for help. 6 rigs answered from Prospect and Bethany, and for a half hour, men tried to bargain with a blaze that had already made up its mind. When the fire lay down, the counting began. They brought the small bodies out of the darkness of smoke and ash and into daylight that did not deserve them. Cheryl lay in the kitchen. 3 children in one room, 2 in another, 1 in the master bedroom, 2 in the bath, where even water could not save them. Some were bound, hands bent behind like a question that never finds its mark. some at the ankles and not tied against escape. Head wounds told the shape of the night. Fire told the rest. The oldest, Frederick, was 12. Sharon, 10. Deborah, 9. Paul, 8. Roderick, 6. Holly, 5. Mary Lou, 4. And a little cousin sleeping over, 6-year-old Jennifer. Because that is what summer does. It braids families together and calls it joy. Police reached Patrick at work. They did not tell him in the aisle's bright hum. They drove him to his mother's house. A pastor waited in a chair that had known happier announcements. "Are they all?" he asked. "All," came back. A single stone dropped into an unfillable well. "There's only one thing left," he said, "to see the bastard pay." The house on the hill had cooled. The town had not. State troopers placed a command post at Town Hall and drew a circle around Prospect, stopping cars along Route 68, fishing for a shadow that could burn a family and sit still inside a skin. They noted a detail that police cherish and neighbors almost never forget. All doors and windows were locked. Either the killer wore the house like a familiar coat, or he had stayed when the last goodnight was said. Whispers coalesced into a name: Lorne J. Acquin. He had once lived in the basement for nearly 2 years. He'd been seen on Thursday night, seen again before dawn, sitting in a black sedan near a church parking lot a mile away, like a moth, trying to remember which window held the light. A file opens. The dates line up like tombstones. Born March 21st, 1950. A body that could be lost in a crowd. 5'8", 130 pounds. Long black hair, a mustache. Parole papers. A larceny. An escape attempt. A release not even a year old. None of this proves what the night saw. It only says a man has been chiseled by poor choices and bad clocks. Police knocked on his door the morning after the fire. They asked for a word. He came. In interview rooms, time becomes syrup. A clock second hand can sound like rain on a tin roof. They asked. He answered. Confessions are strange animals. Sometimes they crawl out willingly. Sometimes they are hunted down and cornered and paraded. This one came in 7 typed pages. It came 3 times, the story told and retold, as if repetition could thaw whatever had frozen inside that night. He said he went at 7 to take the children for raspberries. He left by 8:30. He returned at 2 or 3 in the morning, slid through the cellar door like a memory. He turned on the kitchen light. Cheryl came down. He asked for tools, for a beer. When she turned, he brought the lug wrench down. He struck a child and then another. He said he tied some of them. He said he defiled 10-year-old Sharon before killing her. He said he poured gasoline, struck a match, and walked away from what he had made. They found a trash bag of bloody clothes near his place. Shoes and socks stained in his trunk, the same trunk neighbors had seen tucked in darkness by the church lot. They booked him on 9 counts of murder and 1 of arson. The state police commissioner said, "I'm absolutely sure." A town exhaled and then held its breath again. The law is a slow, deliberate animal. It tests the fence. Acquin's attorney said the confession was born wrong, that his client was kept for 14 hours without counsel, pressed and promised and shaped into a story that would please the men in the room. He said a psychiatrist murmured that signing would be better. He said blood comes from fights too. Coffee gone cold at a cafe, tempers hot, a busted lip staining a shirt you should have washed yesterday. And the crime scene whispered a doubt of its own, bloody prints, hand and fingers that did not match Lorne J. Acquin. They did not match the victims either. They hung there in the air like a wet sleeve on a winter line, heavy, undeniable, and not belonging to the man in the dock. A reporter recorded another wrinkle. When asked months later, Acquin remembered little, only Cheryl in the kitchen, then bodies and blood, then fire, then running, then waking in New Haven as if yanked from a nightmare by an unseen hook. Schizophrenia, a seizure, a lie recited so many times it came to feel like truth. The mind is a hall of mirrors when it wants to be. Summer turned twice. 1979. A jury took its seats. They read the confession. They saw a photograph that wasn't supposed to be seen. A constellation of smiling faces whose names the fire had already taken. They listened to the defense strike its matches of doubt. No counsel, no memory, unknown prints. They listened to the state pour the gasoline back across the linoleum of their minds. 7 pages, 3 tellings, the bag, the trunk, the witness who saw the car wait out the dark. The jury carried the weight for 3 days and set it down the only place a jury can. Guilty on all 9 counts. The state asked for a sum so large it sounded like a threat to the sun. 245 years. The judge laid down 105 years to life, with parole only possible after half a century. Doors closed on a man who had walked through too many doors in the night. Prison keeps its own calendar. There were infractions, fights, contraband, a refusal to give a sample, the stubborn, graceless little rebellions that say a man does not know how to sit inside himself. Appeals rose and fell like tired birds. One plea after another said the same prayer. Without the confession, there is no case. The court's answer did not change. Without the confession, there is no truth. And yet, even now, the prints in the bath that are not his, the jam mark that is not a child's, remain like pebbles in a shoe you cannot remove. Journalists tried to knock on the door of the only man whose words would matter. Patrick, older now, soft at the edges in the way grief leaves people, did not answer. He owes no one remembrance. There is a kind of holiness in refusing to let a camera eat your last memories of the people you loved. In June 2015, at 65, a blood vessel broke in the brain that had carried too many stories. Machines breathed for him, while the state searched for next of kin that would not come. No autopsy laid its science like a sheet over the bed. A funeral director accepted ashes the way the sea accepts ships, without comment. Some men die surrounded by children reading psalms at their bedside. Some men die at exactly the distance they kept while they lived, alone, unclaimed, the paperwork heavier than the urn. The prosecutor once offered a motive with no anchor, just a shape. Maybe Cheryl caught him in a room where a door should have been locked. A moment of shame curdled instantly to rage, and the only witness protection he could imagine was annihilation. The state could not prove that spark. It only showed the fire that followed. And maybe, for some crimes, motive is a vanity we keep for smaller horrors. What inspired the storm does not matter when you are counting the dead. For years, this was the worst, Connecticut's darkest night. Only Sandy Hook, 2012, eclipsed it in scale and sorrow. But grief is not arithmetic. 9 can weigh heavier than 20 in a heart that knew their names. There is a photograph we cannot look upon. It belongs to the private side of memory, where bedtime stories once lived, and where they must remain. Fires burn houses, time burns stories, but certain addresses refuse to forget themselves. Neighbors move, fresh paint dries, trees grow rings. And still, somewhere in Prospect, a kitchen light is turning on in the mind of a man who didn't come home from work, and the back steps creak, and the mother is turning to get a beer because family knocks at any hour, and kindness doesn't check the time. We are left with a pair of bloody prints that don't belong to the dead or the condemned. There are reasons for this, reasonable ones. The chaos of a fire scene, contamination, the 1,000 human hands that try to help and end up leaving a fingerprint like a question mark. But doubt, once born, is a stubborn creature. It will rock quietly in the corner even when the verdict clears its throat and asks for the room. Some people will always say coerced confession. Some will always say a killer finally told the truth 3 times in a row. Some will say he split in the middle, blackout, breakage, illness, and the animal inside him finished the night without him. The dead cannot weigh in. The living are not reliable narrators, not even of themselves.
Thanks for listening. This has been Fireside Crime Stories, where the darkest tales are always read by firelight. If you haven't already, subscribe, and before you drift off, toss a little fuel on the fire. Hit that like button, ring that bell, so when the shadows shift again, you'll be the first to know that another fire's burning and another story's being told. Until next time, rest well.